This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
Hello, welcome to Power Athlete Radio. This is Denny. I'm here with Luke and Cali. Steve's on special assignment again. Hopefully we'll hook up with him next week. The man's deep undercover, and we're just waiting for him to call in, and we'll bring him in and kind of pick his brain. Anyway, Luke, Cali, what's going on?
Nothing much, man.
Hey.
Just I'm finishing up like 4 or 5 new shirt designs and getting them submitted so we can start getting some new merch up on the store. And then Cali and Ben and I went to Rhode Island last weekend for us.
Okay, whose birthday was it? Whose birthday? You kind of mentioned that there could be some kind of birthday celebration, so
that's Cali's birthday, but that's in a couple months in DC.
Oh.
What? Are you planning a surprise birthday for me?
Cali, you're planning a surprise birthday party for you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I do that every year though.
But so Denny, this was like
there's one motto I like to go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that this last trip was like the Three Amigos, and it was a rough one just because traveling out east is a significant undertaking. Our flight out there, I mean, Cali came to pick me up at like 4 a.m, and we were in airports or on airplanes for like 13 hours. So we each had our own like Cali can, Luke can, Ben can, and we kind of documented the trip so you can kind of see what behind the scenes is all about. And it's basically, to sum it up in like 30 seconds, Luke and Ben talk, Cali laughs. That's it.
Well,
I mean, that's not it. I mean,
how is that not it? I watched the film. It's me and Ben would be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then you laugh.
well, we'll let the audience be the judge of that. Okay, when the editing comes out, we'll see. We'll see. I have a lot more to contribute than just that, I'd like to think.
Magic happens in the editing, Cali. Remember that. But
all right, so hey, team series, a couple days.
Dude, are you ready? I'm going to be there. Cali's going to be there. We're going to be, the pressure's going to be on, Denny.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel any pressure. I think when you're passionate about something and you're coming up to a competition, nerves and the anticipation of the event. I mean, if you're not feeling nervous, then there's something wrong with you, but I've put in my time. I started training for this. I kind of tweaked my program a few months ago. I followed something similar when I trained for the Occupy Strength event last February. And I went into that feeling pretty confident, and I think I fared well. This one, I feel more fluid in the movements. One thing I prioritized in my training was squatting below parallel because I had the Nazi judge from hell, and I swore that I would never get no rep on a question of depth. So I kind of, lightened up the load and gave myself a year. And for the squat alone, I've PR'd that just by going through like a full range of motion, which I should have done anyway, And what happened is it seemed like all my lifts kind of improved on there. So I'm peaking. I've done a shit ton of prowler work just in case we make it to the end. I mean, we're going in there to win it. I want those plates. I want the swag. I want the prowler. And I got the confidence there. So I'm feeling good. And it kind of helps with that butterflies in the stomach.
I love how you call the Nazi judge from hell, who's probably just like a legit judge. I love how you phrase that.
Yeah, and I should go easy on the guy. I mean, judges have a job to do, and in the spirit of, you kind of get emotional. I respected his decision. I backed off a few pounds, and the next squat, he gave it to me, and it didn't affect my standings. So, I mean, he's got a job to do, and he was nobody. He was nobody that you guys brought. I know, Luke, you were there, and I think Nate and a couple of the guys from Naperville, right? Neil was there, Ben. It wasn't any of those guys. I know Nate was one of the judges, and I think Ben might have been, but it was he was just an employee that worked at the affiliate where we had the competition.
Well, let me tell you something. Nate and Ben are softies, all right? Those guys, they're people pleasers. They're not going to be as hard on you probably, but they know good standard. It's for some people, it's harder to know rep athletes more than others. So I don't particularly find that job super hard because I know that I've been no rep before in many events. So I just feel like if everyone's doing the same competition, they should all live up to the exact same standard. And so that's one thing that I know you're sort of speaking in jest, but it's definitely something that I'm passionate about, particularly with all of the Power Athlete Team Series events is honestly, it really does come down to the judging. People, athletes, spectators walk away with an impression of the entire event series based on the fairness of everything. And it wouldn't be Power Athlete and it wouldn't represent us if it weren't, to a really high standard. So that's something that people can definitely expect from these events.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, it's only made me better. Sometimes it takes a little constructive criticism, harshness, what have you, to cause you to reevaluate yourself. And like I said, a question of depth on a squat should never be a question anyway. So I learned from it. Thank you, Judge Nazi from Hell. I'm a better person because of it. And I can go to the team series feeling confident in my abilities.
I like it. I love it.
Awesome.
I don't care.
All right. So I see the Power Athlete headquarters put up a good dead bug video. I like the explanation and the narrative that you used, Luke. I mean, that was pretty in depth. I can remember going over this stuff in the cert, and I kind of feel like you worded it a little bit different, and it was pretty clear, and I liked it.
Well, perfect. That was the plan, and I was kind of waiting for a barrage of questions today on the blog or even on Power Athlete comments, but there haven't been any. So I guess that's a good indicator. Either people aren't watching the video or they just don't have questions on it. But anyone who's gone to the seminar, you'll ask them, hey, what'd you think? Oh, it's so much information. I wish we could have a couple more days. I wish that I could have, written everything down verbatim. I wish there was more detailed notes. But everybody remembers the dead bug. And out of this dead bug position, there's all sorts of different progressions that you can do. And we cover that method, I guess, in pretty good depth at our seminar. But we also find this to be one of the best diagnostic tools and best ways to start building a nice, rigid trunk. And we know that if you go into any sort of bad position under load, you're not going to effectively transmit force into the bar, and you won't effectively lift the weights, and you have a higher chance of injury. So building this kind of the body awareness to maintain and stabilize in this position is essential when you're lifting weights, and especially if you're an athlete.
It's pretty astounding. It's pretty astounding to go to these events or the seminars and see how challenging it is for somebody who is a seemingly, elite athlete or somebody who's seemingly in shape, and then have them try to do those sort of mobility, stability drills like the dead bug. And it's eye-opening, I think, as much for the athlete doing the movement to the coach. And we can certainly see some limiting factors just from something so simple. So it is a pretty effective tool that we like to use frequently.
I like how in the video you showed, you know, what you weren't looking for, you know, the neck position, the rib cage, you know, how you had Ethan, right? Ethan, is that your intern out there?
Well, he was an intern, but now he's a custodial expert.
Now he's the custodial expert.
Yeah, he's our stable boy.
Nice. But no, I liked how you said, well, this is what we're looking for. This is what we're not looking for. And it just kind of like, you know, drills it all home. And like you said, I can remember Cali, and when I went to my cert, I mean, that's like one part of the dead bug. And I'm not going to go into all the other things, but I just know that we spent a lot of time on those mobility movements. And I want to say we were going for like 90-second or 120-second intervals. And it was just one movement after another. And, you know, you do tend to go in, you know, if you have a decent fitness, you know, and you got some strength and you go into one of these seminars, you're feeling pretty good. You're more or less, you're worried probably about like the workouts that you're going to throw at the attendees, but you start going through that mobility stuff, and you know, after a few minutes, you're on the ground. I mean, you're gasping for air. It's challenging. You kind of, all your weaknesses are pointed out in a matter of minutes, and it's kind of humbling.
Yeah, it's you know, we refer to it as dynamic movement prep, and you'll see a couple more pieces, and what we're going to show you is just a sliver of the pie that we have in our back pocket, and it's really all about posture and positioning. If you can see the position and you can recognize that position, any fault in the position would be considered like the no rep. Whether you're mobilizing or whether you're rotating, separating shoulders, lunging, squatting, jumping, but it's all about maintaining position through movement. And then once you build competency there, it just transfers over to everything.
And I think just kind of as an aside, in our seminars, it's pretty like noticeable that there is a high level of kind of suck to it. I mean, it really fucking sucks to have to hold a dead bug or go through certain ranges of motion with that dead bug for 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, as a legend has it that John Wellborn has been known to do. So certainly there is that element of like psychological discomfort as well. Nice.
You know, this is a good segue to a submission we had sent to PAHQ. Comes from Dave Smith, and he asks, as always, great work on the CrossFit Football site and the podcast. Thank you. 2 in 1 week. Can you explain the physiology of why attempting to reach your chin over the bar during chin-ups or pull-ups can negatively impact your on-field performance and your other lifts? I know you mentioned lots of people come into your gyms and have this problem. Thanks. Keep up the good work.
Kelly, you want to take it? Should I jump on it?
Luke, why don't you talk about the physiology of it, and I'll talk about a bit about the psychology of it.
All right. So here's the deal. I mentioned in one of my blog posts the one joint philosophy, and that we try to treat the trunk as a single joint, even though the vertebrae is a series of joints. And especially when we're loading the spine. Now, when you're hanging from a bar, if you retract and depress your scapula, you're creating a platform to pull off of that's attached to your spine. We consider that a loaded spine. Even when you're back spotting or back squatting, you have a loaded spine. Whenever you go into excessive flexion or extension, you have shearing between the vertebrae and you are in an unstable structure, okay? Rule one is we just want to avoid that whenever we're loading the spine. We want to be rigid. We want to be mobilized. We want to limit the movement that we're doing, whether it's a horizontal push or pull, vertical push or pull, whether it's a squat, lunge, or step. we want to limit the movement to the compound joints, that being the shoulders and the hips. Okay. So it's just bad. It's a bad way to load your torso. Now, how it affects your on-field performance is this is a bad position and not an effective position to promote effective movement and efficient movement. We know that there's a universal athletic position, and we want to reinforce that position in every aspect of our training. Whether you're pulling up, sitting up, in a dead bug, pulling a bar off the ground, jumping, stepping, anything, we want to reinforce the positions that we find in sport. The reason being is when the bullets start flying or when you're in your arena of competition, you're going to fall to the level of your training. And if you're sloppy with posture and position, you'll be sloppy out there on the field when it matters. Now, I guess what's so interesting is we really call this out at the seminar, and what Cali's going to talk about is that there's really two components to how we react and how we make decisions, whether it's on sport, whether you're buying a car, whether you're deciding what to wear, I don't know. But there's the emotional side of things and the logical side of things. We brief athletes to do something very specific. We say there will be a punishment if you do not follow instructions. Everybody knows, but all of a sudden stress gets high and there's this emotional reaction. And Cali, that emotional reaction is what?
Well, Luke really hit it home. I mean, basically, we see that athletes always will fall to their level of training, and these defaults that we have instilled in our training become that standard. And so when stress hits, like Luke mentioned, we've got this inverse relationship between emotion and logic, and we often use this chin reach as something to really illustrate our ability to maintain good performance. And although it might just seem like a small sort of movement, it really is indicative of that athlete's ability to, maintain that good posture and position. And we know that athletes who are able to fall to a good level of training are going to be less likely or less prone to injury. So that's pretty much why we use that chin reach as that symbolism in our seminar. And most of the athletes who come there, they're a little bit baffled by it and become very frustrated by it because we use elements of punishment, as Tex would call it, to try to instill better posture and position. But I think it's pretty symbolic for us and in a good way to illustrate to them exactly, what occurs. And so that's pretty much why we use that chin reach as an example.
There you go, Dave Smith. I hope that answers your question. It's like you hear, or I've heard John say, if you practice shitty, you're going to perform shitty, something like that. I'm paraphrasing it, but the neutral spine, the neutral neck, it kind of reminds me of the chin reaching, right? It's similar to the new person coming in squatting who maybe gets a little bit parallel and then leans their torso forward rather than achieve that depth, right? It's kind of the same principles as the reaching the chin over the bar, reinforcing good posture and good form, right? The transition onto the field.
Absolutely. And because we're such a performance driven kind of seminar, then that's basically what our training is all about. I mean, if the performance in the weight room is going to translate to the field, then it better be perfect practice, not just practice. Perfect practice makes perfect, not just practice. So, we talk about it all the time. And again, these are just little nuggets that are drawn from the seminar for the podcast. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of examples that we throw out there.
And it reminds me real quick, we had a few podcasts ago, somebody wrote in a submission of asking if the CrossFit football program would make him healthy. He was like a lineman who wants to lose some weight. He was kind of general, but one thing I thought a few days afterwards was, well, yeah, it'll make you healthy, but if you're, Luke talks about like the amateur progression that we've been beating the hell out of. If you take a central nervous system, that's like, brand new to exercise, a virgin CNS, if you will, and you start training and you start making form and priority a priority, right? I'm sorry, form and posture a priority. You start building those motor units, you start building those pathways, your body starts preparing itself for performance, right? It's going to start increasing your metabolism to work a little bit differently. It's like your instincts you're gonna draw on those natural instincts when you're on the field. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have those instincts? You just react like the hand on the hot kettle, how you just pull your hand back without really thinking about it. Could you just call on those instincts on the field without really thinking about it? I mean, that I think we all would kind of want to achieve that. And to go back to that guy's question on the podcast, will this programming make me healthy? I mean, if you're building new like neurological pathways, that's a component to health. I mean, that's a huge component to health.
Sure. Well, I think that there's a couple of points in there. And I would like to say that we have never claimed that following our program is equal to longevity. And just like any other hard-hitting training regime, we don't ever claim that that's going to be the key to a long life. Now, if we're talking in terms of athletic performance, well, this is what we found to be successful. So everything from the power athlete diet to our training protocol to the metcons and the amount of volume and that sort of thing, certainly is it more optimal than certain things that are out there for health? Sure, absolutely. But I do think, as sort of a disclaimer, we're talking about performance. We're talking about performances that are going to change these athletes sort of in the now, and get as much immediate result, like you were saying, drive the CNS, build strength, build stability, build agility, athletic performance. But yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to look at it from a health component, I don't think that very many CrossFit athletes could, for instance, argue that CrossFit is going to equal a long life. Number one, we don't know. And number two, there's no way that, the amount of volume and stress that these athletes are putting on their body at certain periods during their training is going to equate to a longer life. And so I think that's an important point to make. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, is there a component to performance? For sure. Fitness is one thing, performance is another, and then health is possibly something different as well. So it's important to make that distinction. Because, I mean, in football players, if anyone read the recent newsletter that went out, there's a great quote from John there at the beginning that just says, if I live to be 100 years old, I haven't done my job. And I think that pretty much sums it up in a nutshell. I think it's important also to distinguish that, what we drive home at Power Athlete HQ and at CrossFit Football is that we don't necessarily equate our training to longevity. I mean, we are a completely performance-based training protocol. So we're not necessarily telling you you're going to add 100 years to your life, both with our diet or our training. So all the strength training and the metcons, things like CrossFit. The elite level athletes, they're undergoing a ton of volume, but when CrossFit is, for instance, appropriately incorporated into someone's lifestyle, then for sure it will improve the quality of someone's health, and for sure their fitness level. But I think it's important to make that distinction.
Yeah. I can remember the whole the article in the CrossFit Journal when you have You got health on one side and the opposite, or you have fitness, and then the opposite of that would be sickness, right? And
right.
Sorry about
you all right?
that.
Did you just fall?
Yeah, no, I got my little one. She's just dumped her toys here on the floor. But like I was kind of saying with the untrained central nervous system, I mean, when you start on that amateur progression, or if you want to start CrossFitting, right? And you come from a sedentary lifestyle, and this is all new to you, and you're starting to go through the movements. Neurologically, all these changes are happening. I mean, you're building the motor units, you're building pathways. Like I said, all that stuff adds to health, and just the idea
Absolutely.
of strength and the Metcons. If you're not playing in a sport, if your sport is purely training itself, yes, that's going to lead you to a healthy lifestyle. I mean, how could it not? If you're using the, CrossFit football program, strength, huge priority, shorter, heavier Metcons, and you're also a rugby player, I can see where John making a comment like, if I live to be 100, I did something wrong. I could see what he means by all that. I think it's a great quote.
Yeah. And for sure. I mean, when you are driving those sort of adaptations, whether it be your CNS or you are working on hypertrophy, any of those adaptations are going to essentially lead to a higher functioning individual in many capacities. So, I can't disagree with that.
Cool. All right. Well, you know what? Let's change gears. We got one more question to go through. It was more like a discussion that was going on the blog. AJ, he was asking Luke about West Side and CrossFit football. And I took a little clip of what he had said. I trained, and this is his response to Luke. Luke had asked him, what is he training for? So he responds, Luke, I trained West Side, in quotes, for several years and had great success with strength gains, but put a good bit of extra body fat on. Since switching to CrossFit football, my strength gains have remained good, slowed but good, and I'm burning a ton of body fat. I was just wondering if it would be possible / beneficial to combine some West Side methodology with the CrossFit football program. Luke didn't get a chance to answer him. First, I would say, AJ,
Sure.
You've been training for a while and you're making gains. You put in parentheses, slowed but good. I mean, any gain is good, right? If you're past a newbie and you got a few years of training experience, I mean, those gains are going to be harder to achieve. And second, in my opinion, there is a lot of West Side methodology already in the CrossFit football program. I mean, if you go and listen to some of the other podcasts that John's talking to, some of the ones with him and Rob Wolf, or on any of the other ones, most of the time, he'll talk about how he's gone to West Side and spent 3 weeks with Louie and kind of picked his brain. And if you're going to put in that amount of time to go learn about somebody's program, you are influenced by it then. Something's sparked your curiosity. And
yeah, for sure. There are definitely components to the program, particularly like the collegiate template. And I don't know which one this guy is following. I would imagine collegiate, seeing as how he sounds like he's somebody who has a bit of a training age, as we call it. So he's a little bit of a more mature lifter. But yeah, I mean, if he's following the collegiate, then he will see like nuggets and bits and pieces from that style or the West Side methodology. I mean, the variations of the lifts are in there in different capacities. So Definitely. And I think when people come to the seminar too, one thing that we get really in depth on is the programming aspect. And so not only are you looking at from the point of just the athlete, but you're looking at from the point of programming for the athlete. And we do talk about when there is an appropriate time to incorporate things like chains, bands, and for what athlete that makes sense, and for what level of athlete, more importantly. So, these are all little components to that seminar. Sorry for interrupting you, Denny. Were you going to say something else there?
No, I wasn't. I was just going to lead into your response to all that. One thing I do wonder is why there isn't band or chains written into the collegiate or professional. I mean, I could see it more from the professional standpoint than collegiate, but I was just curious, if you had an answer for that. Or did you
absolutely. No, there's a couple of reasons. One of it is that people have to keep in mind that we program for 20,000 plus athletes. And so we found that keeping the program pretty simple doesn't necessarily change its effectiveness. I mean, it's simple, but even the collegiate, which is slightly more complex than the amateur progression, is for sure a simplified version, but it's effective. A lot of, and kind of to make a second point, this sort of idea of using the chains and bands. I mean, we talk about the appropriateness and when you might see that at the seminar, and I don't want to give too much away, but I will say that accessory work as well can often be found in like the Metcons that we throw up there. So some of the variations of the lifts, if we're talking about that, might be seen in the Metcons. But in terms of using those other implements like chains and bands, those are variables that a lot of people don't own. We have a lot of people who follow the program who are in like their garage. So it's a little bit harder, for instance, to make good quantifiable adjustments for 20,000 people. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, I see where the bands and the chains play a part. I think earlier in my training, I thought they looked cool, so I started using them without a little ignorance to the whole purpose of what I'm supposed, the whole idea of increasing bar speed and accommodating resistance and all terms like that. Those were kind of vague terms to me. I mean, I knew what they were, but I didn't. I don't know if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I used them.
Sure.
And it's funny. It was actually John who kind of pointed out to me, like, you don't need to do these things if you're doing, A, B, and C. And after that conversation with him, I was like, well, it all started to make, it became more clear. And if you don't have access to these things, you're still going to make huge gains. I mean, it's
right.
Chains and bands aren't this magical, aren't like these magical things you can use to help, push you to the next level alone. They're just little tricks of the trade, kind of, in my opinion.
And that's just it. I mean, there's 2 points to that. And one is that most of the time people start implementing them too early into their program. And so they're not a necessary part of training certain parts of strength, especially with amateur athletes. So to start simple is plenty effective in and of itself. I mean, some of those athletes are still just learning the mechanics of the lifts. So implementing those chains and bands are only going to accentuate or exacerbate some of their poor form, which I see all the time. And then the second piece to that is like people implementing those little additions, they oftentimes they use them wrong or inappropriately, or they don't program them appropriately, and so they're taking bits and pieces from things like Westside, but they're not implementing them the way they were intended to be used. And so, even something like, as simple as knowing how to do a step up, as we learned with like the video demo, most people were not doing that correctly. And so imagine when we throw something in there like a chain or a band, oftentimes people, it's just going to exacerbate their poor form. So that's that, we're trying to increase performance here, and we want to do that by any means necessary. And we use the chains and bands for those higher level athletes who have already proven their competency in the lifts themselves. So.
Awesome. So AJ, there you go, man. I would just follow the CrossFit football program. I mean, if you're burning fat and you're making some strength gains, just trust in these guys. They've done the research. John's gone to Westside. He's trained with those guys. I mean, he obviously is influenced, and you could hear Cali's details. I mean, just trust in the CrossFit football program, and I think you'll be fine. I don't think you'll need to add in a lot of the quote unquote Westside methodology. I mean, if you want to do a few sets of extra dumbbell tricep extensions or something like that, sure. You want to do some extra GHDs or reverse hyper. Yeah, I think, I think there's a place for that in the program. But, if you're trying to add in like the extra dynamic movement stuff or things like that, I mean, it's already in there, dude.
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So.
Exactly. Cool. Well, I think we're out of time, Cali. Is there?
Oh, that's so sad.
I know. I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah, we're a couple of nerds. No, it's good. It's been fun. I'm glad we were able to cover some of those questions. Absolutely.
And I'll see you this Saturday, Lisle, Illinois, Team Series. Any new teams sign up since recently, I guess, in the last week?
Yeah, we had 2 more teams trickle in, so it's going to be a big event. I'm super excited. This is Luke's hometown, and I don't know. I'm sure he'll have some sort of like fan club there. I'm stoked though. I'm stoked to see Uncle Neil there, and Mike who's helping us out. So those are all guys from Naperville and Lisle who are helping us out. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, Denny, and actually seeing you compete. You got to put your money where your mouth is now. So
I know. I'm not a huge smack talker. I kind of just like let my performance kind of speak for itself. So I feel confident and prepared, and we're gunning to win it. So I'm excited. More teams signed in. I thought it might, because we had the North Central Regionals last weekend, so all those people who probably didn't make it, who didn't, I was hoping that they would form a team and sign into this competition just to get it up there and make it more interesting. Hopefully we'll have some nice weather, Yeah. I'm kind of anticipating you're going to throw the worst at us.
Oh, no, I won't ask you to do more than you're capable of doing. I think if you follow CrossFit football and you've got a good, strong strength base, then you have nothing to worry about except for the Prowler.
The Prowler from hell.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, Cali. Well, anything you want to close with?
No, I don't think so. The next event, just to kind of plug, the next event is going to be in Katy, Texas. So if anyone is looking towards that, end of July, Katy, Texas, go to powerathletehq.com for more details on that event.
There you have it, Power Athlete Nation. Sign up for it. All right, Cali. I guess that's it.
All right. It's been fun, Denny. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Later,
right.
Gator. Bye.
Yep. Bye.